We are meeting today to celebrate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on this day 75 years ago, with 48 nations voting in favour, none voting against, and only 8 abstaining. Of course, at the time that the Universal Declaration was adopted, many of the countries of the Global South were not yet members of the United Nations, as they were still colonies under European colonial powers. Nevertheless, the drafters of the Universal Declaration came from all over the world. René Cassin of France, Peng Chang from China, William Roy Hodgson of Australia, John Humphreys of Canada, Charles Malik from Lebanon, Carlos Romulo from the Philippines, and Hernan Santa Cruz from Chile. Noteworthy is the fact that at the time when very few women were in public life, 2 powerful women were part of the drafting process, Hansa Mehta from India and Eleanor Roosevelt from the United States, who chaired the Commission on Human Rights that drafted the Declaration. It took some time for the rights in the Declaration to become legally binding in international law. By the 1960s, of course, the United Nations membership had swelled to include many new nations from the world's majority. And it's important to know that it was representatives of these new nations that drove the process to ensure that the rights in the Universal Declaration would be recognized in binding covenants. Often these nations had to resist opposition to the drafting of the covenants by countries from the global north. The program that led to the great human rights conventions of the 1960s was led by the United Nations Human Rights Commission under the chairmanship of Sir Egerton Richardson, Jamaica's first permanent representative to the United Nations. Of course, there have been and still remains contestation about rights, and states across the world often fail in their obligations to protect and fulfill them. But it is also important to remember today how the language of rights has inspired and informed the struggles of liberation movements and civil society actors, all aiming to achieve the protection of rights and improving the quality of life of citizens of the world. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was in many ways way ahead of its time. The rights it proclaims remain relevant to this day, although many of the world's citizens do not yet enjoy their protection. May the Universal Declaration of Human Rights continue to serve as a common standard of achievement for the world over the next 75 years, and let us hope that when nations gather in 2098, there will have been substantial progress in achieving the establishment of that standard across the world.